So today we are here to watch Waiting for Your Turn in D&D Combat - turn-based. The first episode was remarkably free of rules lawyery comments, but this episode, oh boy. So this was probably the most difficult one. It was one of the most difficult ones to write. It was easily the most difficult one to film, and it has easily been the most difficult one to edit as well. This is a difficult skit, and unfortunately, it's also the content of it is kind of low-hanging fruit. I knew that it would need to be. It was one of my earliest ideas for the series, and as such, it's low-hanging fruit. It's not that ingenious or it's not that ingenious or original. But it also, because of the nature of what we were doing, especially with Season 1, trying to bridge that gap between people who play video games and tabletop RPGs and stuff, we had to really kind of use those low-hanging fruit for Season 1. Yes, people are trying to... I'm actually about a series poking fun at the rules of D&D. I'll get a lot more into it later, but the brunt of most of the rules lorry comments, which granted are only like a quarter of all of the comments, are like, actually D&D in the game, to the perspective of the characters, each round only takes 6 seconds, so they're not waiting for each other. And I'll get into all the reasons why that's wrong later. Miss Bowman, thank you for the 200 bits. So I'll tell you what I'll do first. I will first show you the script. I'll actually show you the script that I wrote as like the first edition, and you'll see how much it changed. Hashtag blame Rowan. Why are we blaming Rowan? Why are you reading the comments? Because most of the time on Viva La Dirt League skits, the comments are actually very good, as far as YouTube comments go. And also, it's my job as a content creator online. I have to engage and read and like and comment and reply and all of that. Your video about delving dungeons and fighting dragons isn't perfectly realistic. Yeah. Yep. So the one that you saw was the 6th draft, and by the time it was edited and everything, it would have actually been like a 7th draft. But this is the first. This is the first edition, and then you'll see it's basically shit. Exterior forest path day. We see the party walking down a wooded path when out jump 6 orcs in an ambush. Instantly, everybody dives into action. We see in quick succession a series of snappy close-up cuts showing each person attacking in the following order: Rogue, Orc 1, Wizard, Monk, Orc 2, Barbarian, and so on. Each time the camera cuts to them, they take an action of some kind, attack, spell, or potion, etc. When we see the audience, we see the order repeat twice, or even 3 times, with just attack noises and grunts, before the dialogue begins on the next repetition. The wing, Mark of Talos. Ukmaguk! This one has lightning powers. They must be after Mosko's heart. Talos, lightning powers, and Mosko are all references to a published campaign in D&D called The Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, where the ongoing bad guys throughout that whole campaign are half-orc shapeshifters that worship the god Talos, who is a god of lightning. And at one point during that campaign, there is a half-orc chieftain or something that is semi-undead because his heart has been removed and used as like the source of power in a lighthouse. So Mosko's heart is an item in that game. So I was just kind of this is my first edition before. This is way before like casting had happened or anything. This is like just getting my ideas down on paper. So this was before casting. This is before I'd even decided on the cast on the roles per se. So that's why you can actually see that in this edition there was a paladin involved, and paladin is one of the roles that I've cut from season 1. There's no one playing paladin. So I was just putting down. Anytime I needed one of the characters to be doing something, I just grabbed one of them and was like, "Hey, there you go. I'll put a rogue in there first and a wizard in there as well, and blah blah blah." None of the classes had any sort of characterization to them yet. So blah blah blah. Barbarian starts to notice that no one is moving, aside from the one speaking and attacking. Orc 6 swings an axe at Barbarian, who blocks it, and then they both go back to a waiting in an idle stance. The camera lingers on them, but we still hear the round moving in the same order off screen. Barbarian continues to look around, increasingly confused, and you'll see that everything's turned to off screen now. So at this point, we stay on Barbarian, watching him and going, that's weird. After his line, the camera stays on Barbarian rather than cutting to Orc 3. So we're starting to realise that he's realising. So as we as the audience are realising that they're not moving all simultaneously, Barbarian is also realising that. Barbarian drops his fighting stance entirely, testing to see if Orc 6 will attack, but he doesn't. The camera reveals the whole battlefield now. It gets to Barbarian's turn, but he doesn't realise straight away. He sees Wizard on the ground near Paladin and gestures silently to Wizard. Paladin nods, but Barbarian's not confused. There's a long pause as he, very confused, studies the battlefield, realising no one's attacking. Eventually, he tentatively raises his sword and strikes Orc 6, who mostly parries, taking a little wound. And then the round continues immediately as before. Snap, 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 suddenly back into it. So the idea there was that it was fast pace, and then it gets to, hey, Level Up TV, thank you for the raid. We're doing a behind the scenes of my latest episode of D&D Logic, which went up last night. And I'm reading through the first edition, the first draft of that script, which was far from what actually ended up on the screen. Fast pace, and then it suddenly grinds to a halt, and he's like, why have we suddenly stopped? And he realises, oh, it's my turn. And as soon as he makes a small attack, boom, back to fast pace, everybody does a thing. Paladin kneels, touches the Wizard to heal him. Wizard nods in thanks, but doesn't move yet. The Orc takes a turn. Barbarian's trying to understand what is happening, and he's had his guard down completely. He gets hit, Rogue disengages and runaways behind a tree. You can tell it's before casting, as I've used male pronouns for the Rogue there. You went after him, and then Rogue goes after you, and that's more to himself. He's like, what? He's piecing it together. Oh, and then him, and then Wizard. Ah, okay. So he's starting to realise, oh, we've got a turn order. I get it. And then once he gets it, he's like, yeah, I'm proud of myself for having worked it out. He anticipates his turn coming around. My turn! Yeah, I got one. I get it. Paladin, next. You get what? We're going one at a time in some kind of turn order. Wait, but this still makes no sense. Rogue appears upside down from a branch to fire an arrow. That's one of the hardest things that I had to cut. I really, really wanted to see that shot of Phoenix like just popping down upside down and then popping back into the tree again. What makes no sense? Well, why don't I just... He stabs and kills Orc 5. Whoa, but you're not meant to... It's not your turn. Why didn't you? And then Barbarian slashes down Orc 2 and then kills them all. Oh yeah, that was way quicker. We should do that next time. So very different in its setup. I had to change quite a lot. Jump into the final draft that was written. Basically what we see. Close up on booted feet walking. Thank you for the follow. Wine on the party, walking down a path, outjump 6 orcs in ambush. It's an ambush! Disengage! Hide! We see Orc 1 grimacing, Wizard casts blur on himself, yada yada yada. By this point I'd nailed down which 5 party members we were going to see. And also we were, each of the characters had like a particular characterization now, so I knew that Rogue was a particularly cowardly person, so the very first thing she does in any combat is hide behind someone bigger or run away, get as far away as possible and fire. And Wizard likewise getting a high initiative, he goes, oh shit, high initiative, better blur myself up, blah 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 blah, snappy snappy snappy. Another round of snappy shots, but we're slightly wider now. So the idea was like we're super close up on everybody's first shots, and then like we're like mid shot as everybody's kind of shoot it, and maybe you can see like the odd thing around them that's not quite making sense. Oh, they're not actually as close to each other as it looks. And then on the third round of combat, we move out into the dialogue, and we realise at this point they're moving in turn order. They're wearing the mark of Skerrit, the centaur god. That changed. They must be after the von Stadbury heart. I changed the references to the written module, the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, in order to reference things in this campaign instead. So the mark of Gredulo and the von Stadbury heart are both references. They're both examples of throwaway lines that didn't really add anything to this. The lines themselves add to it, but the content of the lines weren't important for this particular joke to work. So they're perfect for me replacing them with things that allow for a through line through the entire campaign. So all 10 episodes have an actual campaign running behind them, but individual episodes can stand alone. It's just that the word von Stadbury and the word Gredulo will come back in other ones in reference to various things throughout. Monk snap kicks Orc. Wait, what are we fighting? So by now I've already decided that the characterization for Monk is that he's played by the character that he's played by the player at the table that's never really listening to what's going on. He's the player that you go, roll initiative, and then they go, oh shit, what was happening? Why are we in a fight? What's going on? You're like, fucking hell, Ben, we're fighting orcs because there was an ambush. Oh, right, okay. So I thought that was humorous that he's like literally right in the face of an orc and he's like, what are we fighting? So the monk is Rowan. I didn't say that. It's your words, not mine. The player that's always on their phone, yeah, essentially, yeah. Barbarian, he's still in his barbarian form at this point. Don't let them live. He's gone into his barbarian rage, but then the line stays on him. And off stage, we hear the cleric. We fight with Lathander's light. Excuse me. What are we doing? Oh, not you two. It's bad enough that Crunch is never listening. Crunch is the monk. Got one. No, I know we're fighting orcs. I mean, why are we waiting? What do you mean waiting? Oh, damn it! You distracted. The sun was in my eyes. Wizard was already. Thank you, Mister. Showing his characterization of being like a bit arrogant and willing to pass the buck anytime he fails. Why are we taking turns? Who's taking turns? Where are we again? I don't even know. He's not even been listening to where they are. Are we in a desert? He fights his stance. Look, they're fighting. When they're not even fighting us. Blah blah blah. You're waiting for me, aren't you? Cure wounds. You're not out yet, Targrim. Get up and fight. And he doesn't actually get up or move. You can see here there's no line from Wizard on the ground. He just kind of nods because it's not his turn, so he doesn't speak. But in the edit it was a little too bland, a little too confusing. The pacing dropped a little bit there, so we got Byron to ADR that line of him going, I'll get up in a moment. Barbarian's still trying to understand what's happening. He gets struck with a sword, yada yada. Rogue loses an arrow from wherever she's hiding. After Targrim, it's all pretty much how it was. I like this line. Monk, Barbarian saying, can't we kill them all at once? And Monk going, with a fireball. Oh wait, are you a wizard? Like he's been paying so little attention to the entire campaign that he's confused for a second about one of the other players at the table and whether the player who's playing a barbarian is actually playing a wizard.
Oh,
wait, are you a wizard?
A new adventurer joins the team.
Herder, thank you for joining the party. No, I mean like that. Oh, but it's not your... It doesn't seem to matter. Kills them all. Yeah, that was way quicker. So pretty much how it was from that point on. Thank you, Herder, for the 3 months of support. So let's go back to the other one here. And I'll go through it scene at a time. Pat McCock. Pat McCock. Close this one down. This was difficult enough in its own on its own because you can see the sort of terrain that we're dealing with. This is the forest floor, and having the cameraman sort of crouched low to get on the right angle for Phoenix's feet, and then like walking backwards through all of this. We tried it like 3 takes. He kept tripping over a root or something halfway through it, or not quite getting his foot caught or something. And we were so far behind schedule on this that we just needed to keep moving. So after like 2 or 3 failed takes, the creative director was like, "Nah, we're not getting in one shot. We're gonna have to cut. We're gonna have to cut the walk in and have a stationary walk in and something like that." So it was fine. Just a technical change to keep us moving on the day. This was the 3rd day of filming, the day out in the forest where there was rain in the morning and threatening of rain in the afternoon as well. And we had four skits to get through. So we had to keep moving. And this was the 2nd of the episodes for the day as well. So I'd already gotten a shot of Phoenix, an extra shot of Phoenix in the first episode of the day, which I think I've talked about before. It's the episode that made it into the trailer, I think, where she's being held back by Adam and she's going, and he's like holding her back. No. It was that shot, and I was like, yeah, I really want that shot. We hadn't planned for it, so the technical director says, what shot are we losing from the next skit then? And that was this skit. So I had to, so although it was even the hardest skit to film already, it became even more hard when I had to then cut something from it to keep the flow on the day. 2 actors in body paint who can't get wet. Yup. Is there a handle to put on top of the camera to get the floor shots? Yeah, there is. Yeah, but not on a steady rig. Marie is heading out. No worries. Have a good day. That is obviously CGI. These stunt performers were amazing. It kind of been easy to be wearing those costumes and masks all day and dealing with those weapons and things and choreography that I just didn't give them. So they all took great direction and just did exactly what I wanted. And it was easy enough to speed up this process because I knew the first two rounds of combat were all just going to be snappy shots. I just stayed on this guy first and went, right, orc number 1, which in all of my subsequent notes are called Axe. Orc Axe. I was like, Axe, give me 2 things. First one is you running in, because you're the first orc in the initiative order. So you run in. And then we jump to one of the other side running in. Monk runs in, I think. Wizard, and then Wizard blurs himself, and then Monk runs into combat. And then by the time the first 3 have run into combat, we don't need to see everybody else running into combat on their turn. It's meant to be like, even though they would be moving in on their turn, we're cutting in just at the end of their move in when they first make their first action of their turn. So from a D&D perspective, one of the things that made this the most difficult for me is that I needed to make sure that it worked. Because the joke pays off about them being in turn order, they needed to be in a turn order and be consistent with that. And so the edit kept coming back to me saying, how about this? And I was like, no, because you've suddenly switched Barbarian to before Cleric, or Wizard goes before Orc on this round and stuff, because the cutaway makes sense from an edit perspective. Oh, he's giving him a reaction and him going, or whatever. But he's not doing that because it's not his turn, and the whole joke is about them being in turn order. So they needed to stay in the same initiative order every time we see them. Which was a very pedantic thing, but it's something that means a lot to me. It's important to me as a class A pedant that these things are, everything that you see is possible to actually happen in a game of D&D. So first in the initiative order is this Axe Orc. We see him run in, and then and that's him charging. That's him taking his turn to action dash or whatever. I like that effect that he's like blurring himself out a bit. That one took a couple of times for me to explain the spell and what the effect was that I'm trying to get, because at first he was like conjuring something in his hand, and I was like, no, it needs to be over his entire body, and as he starts to like blur and shift. I think that's cool. That one had to be, we had to lose I had Monk run in, and I had him shouting, "Step of the wind!" as he runs in, because as a monk you can take your bonus action to dash if you take a feature called Step of the Wind. So he goes Step of the Wind, and he bonus action runs in, and then he still gets his action to attack twice. But for pacing and things, we had to actually lose his run in. So it's fine. At this point, we're trying to make it look like, with the quick edits, we're trying to make it look like everybody was running in simultaneously with that first orc, when actuality, that first orc runs in, and then the wizard stays back here and does his thing, and then the monk runs in to meet him, and then the next orc runs in and attacks. So it's all happening one after another, but I've cut it to make it look like everything's happening simultaneously at first, setting up the joke for later. That's the orc taking... The second orc is, instead of running in and attacking, he's taking his turn to do an orc chief ability that's like Inspire or something, and it gives all of his other orcs advantage on their next attack, so he's doing like a... which gives a little dynamism to the orcs and dynamic take on it. This is his preparatory round, so Barbarian's obviously going into a rage on his first round of combat. You can see that Barbarian was shot from beneath. Dwarf was shot from above. Barbarian was shot from beneath, just to try and subtly indicate the height differences between them all as well. Orc's number... So Orc Beard, I called him, because you can see his beard sticking out from under his helmet. Orc Beard and Orc Tusk, because he's actually the only Orc that actually has tusks on his mask. They just take attacks. We were almost ready to print. This was like the day before yesterday, so like the day before it actually goes live. We were still working on this, and it came back to me like sign off. And it's a good thing that I actually watched it, and not just the bits that I'd given notes on in the previous edition, because when I watched it, I noticed that he conjured like a blue flame in his hand, like Hermione in the first Harry Potter, and I was like, oh shit. That's on me. I completely forgot to explain that Sacred Flame is one of the worst named spells in D&D because it's nothing to do with fire. It doesn't have anything to do with flames at all. He conjures a pillar of radiant light from above, essentially. So he's still got he's conjuring magic effect, but it's not actually a flame in his hand. The worst named spell in D&D, that has to go to Chill Touch. Chill Touch doesn't do cold damage, and it isn't a touch spell. It is a ranged spell that does necrotic damage, but it's called Chill Touch. Orc Duel and Orc Bow. The arrow is CGI, as most of VLDL's arrows are. The arrows in his quiver are real, but the arrow in his bow is not. And I love that little touch there that they've taken the arrow that he fires into the next shot and disappears into the bush behind her.
The mark of Gredulo.
And she's hiding behind a tree now, firing arrows. Again, that Gredulo line will set up something that comes later into the series without being important enough for this episode to actually make a difference. Orc Axe takes an attack. Hold person, dropping his blur. I did ask. They obviously ran out of time in the edit or whatever. So back to the top of the round. So Rogue went first and disengage hide, then Axe, then Wizard, then Monk. Axe, then Wizard, then Monk's next. So I asked that at the very top of this scene, he still be under the effect of the blur from the previous scene. Oh, in fact, look at that. The last couple of frames actually are, look. I wish they'd held it a little bit long, just like another 5 frames or something. But you can tell that the blur effect, now that you actually cut it down to 1 frame at a time, look. His blur effect is going off because they're both concentration spells. And so he casts blurs on himself, and then and it's just a very subtle thing. Most people won't pick up on it. In fact, one of the rules lawyers in the comments tried to pull me up on it, and I was like, no, that's not a flaw, that's a feature. I did that on purpose. He is casting 2 concentration spells simultaneously, concurrently, because he's not a very good wizard. He's not a very good person to play the wizard character. We've already seen in episode 1 that he's tanked his constitution, which is not a good idea for a wizard. And furthermore, he's now casting 1 concentration spell after already casting 1, and thus making the blur completely irrelevant consecutively. That's the word I was looking for. So you can see in the first couple of frames that his blur is finishing just because he's casting Hold Person now. I just wish they'd kind of held it until the moment he sort of says person, and then it drops with the other one maybe. He's bad at wizard, yep. You can actually see the mouth of the extra. Inside the orc masks, yeah, they're not the best. They're pretty good masks, but they're not the highest quality that you can get. Sup, Elway fan, how's it going?
Who are we fighting?
Monk again, look, and then staff. So it's maintaining the same order of effect.
Don't let them live!
Don't let them live! He's still aggressively barbarian at this point. And there's a little subtle thing here, look. As Beard walks back out of his range, Barbarian takes an attack of opportunity and misses. So that secondary attack, it looks like it helps to make things look like everything's happening simultaneously at first, while we're still setting that up. But in game terms, everything still can happen in the order that it happens, because he's taking his attack of opportunity, and then he gets stabbed by the next guy in the turn order. And this is when it would, in the first turn of combat, it moves to Cleric, who went Sacred Flame, but now we're staying on Barbarian to set up the fact that his joke is coming. And now he's realising, oh. So it comes at a time when it's been like quickfire on Barbarian. We're seeing that now we've moved from close-ups on singles to a two-shot with Ben and this, so we're starting to pull out enough to see that all that time that he was attacking with Barbarian, Ben is doing nothing. So it's even more subtle, this one, which people won't pick up on unless you're analysing it scene by scene like this. But the focus of the frame, the people in the foreground, are the orcs and Barbarian fighting. But if you're really paying attention to it, the monk in the background is also not moving. So we're very subtly starting to introduce the fact that they're in turn order.
Don't let them live!
Same with the axe orc behind him as well, look. And it's not until we fail to cut away to Cleric on his turn that we start to realise it as the audience. Oh, they're moving in turn order. And then finally, once we've had that realisation as the audience, oh, why are they waiting? Now we can finally see them from outside of the turn order.
Guys, what are we doing?
And from this point on, it became really difficult in the edit to keep the turn order correct in the rest of the scene. I did go through, and because on the day it became very difficult for me to keep everything in mind, and so I gave these guys some of the wrong direction. I think I misnamed them depending on what rather than what they were named in my script. I named them 1 through 6 down here, which is not how I'd named them in the script. And so it fucked me up on the day, and I lost track of it, and I think I told staff to go out of turn a couple of times. So when it came to the edit, I made sure to get this was the only one. Let me backtrack. So normally with the edits, I don't see them until like the first draft. We got all the footage on the day, and then I can chill for a bit while the editors are doing their magic. Then they send me the first draft and say, what do you think? And I can say yes, this and this. But with this one, I tried giving notes a couple of different times, and he kept coming back saying, we don't have that shot, and this doesn't work, I don't know what you want from me, kind of thing. So eventually I said, give me all of the raw footage. And he uploaded all the raw footage for me, and I downloaded it all. And then I went into my own editing software that I use for my YouTube videos and stuff, and I cut together my draft of how this episode should work, and then I sent that to him and said, this is what I'm talking about. And to do so, I went through every shot that we had, and I literally wrote them down on pieces of paper, separate pieces of paper, and I cut them out, and I made sure to put them all in turn order. And I was like, okay, so we need staff to be in this order, but he goes out of order here, so if we cut this at the top of this scene and I move this guy in, and then I get a reaction from Wizard at this point, then technically they're still in turn order. Thank you, Spartacus. And I went, okay, this one here, alright, we're missing a Beard attack. Beard needs to attack. We've already used the only shot of him attacking that we've got when he attacks with Barbarian. Oh, at the top of that scene, right before we say action, he was waiting there, and as the stunt performer, he was kind of idling, waiting for me to say action, so that he can jump in and make his attack. We can use that as the reaction to Barbarian saying, come on, hit me! So I used that bit there, and I cut this bit here, and moved everything around, and then I worked it all out, and I was like, okay, so if he goes there, then Barbarian, then the axe guy takes the ready action to attack when Monk takes his attack. Then that explains why the axe goes right after Monk, kind of thing, and yada yada yada. So I worked it all out, and you can trust me. You can go through it with a fine-tooth comb if you really had nothing else to do in your life. But you can just trust me, take me at my word, that it does work at the gaming table. Everything makes sense. That some people have taken the ready action on their turn, and then shoot once the guy's healed or whatever. And it's almost definitely not worth the amount of effort that I put into it, because the vast majority of people who've watched this will watch it once and go, huh, and then they'll never watch it again, or they'll never think about it again, and they certainly won't be breaking down the turn order and whether it actually works. But it was important for me in my own obsessiveness that it made sense. Because I guess that stems from my own watching of content online, D&D content. There's a lot of D&D skits on YouTube that irk me because they're taking the piss out of D&D in a way that D&D doesn't actually even play out. I'm like, well, yeah, you're setting up a straw man. You're sort of taking the piss out of something that D&D doesn't do. I needed everything that I'm taking the piss out of to be something that actually happens in D&D. Which is, I suppose, why a lot of the rules lawyers are finding this irking as well, to be like, well, that's not how D&D plays out. But it is. This is how D&D plays out, and I'll explain why later. No, Rob, it's worth it, because some of us know it has to be right. Yeah. To be fair, the rules people not complaining about the turn order being wrong means you got that part right and good. Yeah, that's a good point, Dazel, yeah. Well pointed out.
Guys, what are we doing?
Not you too. Setting up their conscious and listening.
So this is one of the shots that I forgot to get on the day. We didn't get a close-up of... we didn't get a close-up not because I forgot, but because I didn't realise it was needed. I didn't realise that Phoenix hadn't been lapel mic'd. Our sound guy only had a certain number of lapel mics or something. And in a wide shot like this, you can't boom it, because where the hell would the boom mic be? And so everybody had to be lapelled for their lines. And I didn't realise that Phoenix wasn't lapelled. So for this shot, this is the only shot we have of Phoenix making this particular line. Thank you for the follow. And it was the only sound we could get was from the lapel mic, which the boom mic, which is like way up here. And so the sound was crap. So I think they've had to get Phoenix to ADR that line. But I do like the fact that it kind of plays out in this wide. I just wish, in retrospect, I think it wouldn't have broken anything to actually just push in. Because in my mind, in my setup for what I wanted this to look like visually, is that I wanted it to be a very visual difference between the start and the end of the skit. So that at the start, everything's in close-ups. We're close up on her boots. We're close up on the tree. We're close up on the orcs running in. Obviously, we get that one wide of them all ambushing so that we can see what's happening. It's an orc ambush. But then from that point on, it's close up, close up, close up, close up. And then in round 2, it's slightly wide, slightly wide, slightly wide. And then by the end of the skit, everything plays out in the wide so that we can see from the player's perspective, looking down at the minis on the table, the entire battle. And so I was worried that if we pushed into Phoenix for this particular throwaway line, it's bad enough that Crunch isn't listening. I thought that would break that kind of flow. And in hindsight, it wouldn't have. So I kind of wish that right here I'd have got a close-up of Phoenix popping out from the tree and being like, it's bad enough that Crunch isn't listening. Still works, Rob. Just sometimes a distant voice like that adds variety. Yeah, I think it still works.
Yes.
And again, just another fantastic performance by the stunt performers there. She's obviously not firing an arrow. It's easy to get sort of into the character and think that all of this stuff is actually happening and people are getting slaughtered and stuff, and forget that these are all actors just doing things. She's not firing anything. That arrow on her bow there, it's all CGI. And every single shot has been like changed digitally to make it look to follow her movements with her hand and bow. It's amazing the amount of work they do in it. And then his reaction time to her letting go of the weapon, it's perfect. And the fact that he's getting blasted back in the chest, it really sells the point of impact. Amazing stunt performers. The loss of a missed shot, where only you know the difference. However, as the audience, it works fine. I know, right? It was always the same when I was on stage as well. As an actor, I would always get off stage after the performance, and I'd speak to my mum or whoever was in the audience, and I'd be like, did you notice that we completely fucked up that scene? And she'd be like, no, of course not. Because I haven't been rehearsing it every day for the last 3 weeks, so I don't know what it's meant to be. I just noticed the scene as it played out, and it was fine. But everybody who has been in it, really in it, gets to know all these little differences, and they pick apart these little tiny things.
Yes, got one.
No, I know we're fighting orcs. I mean, why are we waiting?
What do you mean, waiting?
I love this effect as well. Him casting off a firebolt that just goes fucking wide. He's only like 10 feet from him, and he's just like, shit. And then it just fizzles.
I mean, why are we waiting?
What do you mean,
Firebolt!
waiting?
You distracted distracted me now. And then the wizard playing into that extra little role of him being A, incompetent as a wizard, and B, feeling like he's super competent because he's a Tarask tamer or whatever. He's killed a kraken, he's a kraken slayer and all of this, and he can't even hit an orc with a cantrip from 10 feet away. So there's just another subtle little bit to sort of add to that characterization to the character there. and then blaming the barbarian.
Oh, Christ, you're distracting me now! Why are we taking turns?
Where are we fighting again?
And this one, some rules lawyer on my Discord tried to indicate to me, actually the Axeman took an attack at Ben when it wasn't his turn.
Distracting me now! Why are we taking turns?
But I accounted for this. I already accounted for this. I wanted Ben to have this guy in a headlock because it's very grapple-y like, and it sort of indicates a little bit more character for the monk playing a monk. Makes it a little clearer that he's a monk and he's a martial artist to have someone in a grapple. And I love the idea of him having an orc in a headlock while he's going, where are we? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Who are we fighting? And so I said, it's not out of the realm of possibility for this axe orc to have the sentinel feat, which part of the sentinel feat allows you to take a free attack as a reaction when one of your allies is attacked. So Ben attacks one of his allies. He takes an attack of opportunity, which interrupts Ben's turn. This is still Ben's turn. So Ben, as a monk, has two attack actions.
Again?
And so for his second attack action, he makes a grapple a check against that orc.
And who's taking turns?
Us.
I love it. It's the barbarian that's figured out that there's something weird going on instead of any of the more intelligent style characters. That is definitely one of the very earliest decisions I made, Scalem. I wanted to subvert expectations around the barbarian. It works on two different levels as well. I wanted to subvert expectations that the barbarian's stupid, in that he is going to be the straight man of the series. He's the one who's, and I mean that in like the comedic term, in case you're unfamiliar with the terminology. It's also known as the stooge. It's basically the one who's playing the normal part of the logic, the real world logic, when everybody else around them is being stupid or silly or, the comedic effect of whatever the scene is. So barbarian is going to be the stooge or the straight man being like, what's going on? Why are we doing it like this? This is ridiculous. But the second level that it works on is that because the rules of the world genuinely do work that way, barbarian inevitably comes off as stupid to the characters. He's not stupid to us, the audience, because we live in the real world, following real world logic, and his logic makes the most sense to us. But in the character world, he would be considered stupid because he's not following real world logic. So I'd put a lot of thought into which one should be the one to actually understand what's going on in the world. Interesting that you kept a real world deity in the curse there. I didn't, Cake Ladder. That was what's his name? Byron. That was Byron doing that as an ad lib line. In the line that I showed off at the start of this stream, though, in my script, he says something like, the sun was in my eyes, and he's coming up with all these different excuses. And Byron was like, Christ, you distracted me. And I didn't catch it on the day to tell him to not use that. You make a skit where DM fights rules lawyers. It just like physically fights them. You should send the rules lawyers here, something like, you're wrong, watch the BTS here. You get to hook them with the claim of being wrong, and you get to correct them on stream. Yeah, true. Was this filmed in Woodhill? It was filmed in some wooded area out west Auckland way, like way west. That's a nice axe. It is a nice axe, yeah. Everybody in that world is going to be like, barbarian, how are you not getting this? Yeah, exactly. Like, barbarian, what's wrong with you? God, how can you be this stupid?
All of us.
His bald cap is tremendous, but it does leave for some very issue-laden creases that they take up a phenomenal amount of work from the editing team to like blur those lines out, and like, so there's some scenes where we just have to be like, it's not as integral. We've already spent 25 hours of post-production editing on this particular 4-minute skit. It's not worth spending any more time trying to blur those those creases out of his head. So we'll just keep going. They're rage veins. Yeah, yeah, it's wrinkles exactly. And if you do ever see bald people, they do often have wrinkles around the back of their head here and on their forehead. So it is a natural wrinkle of the human scalp. Not that he's human.
We're all just taking turns fighting. Look,
Look!
come on. Come on!
Love his over-the-top deaths. So good. You can see right before he goes down. He's wearing such huge gloves. But he throws one of them off. He goes up with his hand to his mouth, and I think he bites his glove and takes his hand out and throws the glove to the ground so that he can ow. But I made sure to cut that because then it becomes very clear that he's got a human-sized, human-proportioned hand, and we kind of lose that stocky, everything's huge around dwarf kind of thing.
Well, you gonna heal him?
But you can see there that his glove's lying on the ground beside him.
You're waiting for me, aren't you?
Waiting for me, aren't you? And I love that Barbarian's just like reluctantly just pokes him with the end of his staff, end of his axe, not even like a strike.
Cure wounds. Rise, Taugurum, and
Join the fight.
Okay, I'll get up in a moment.
And as I said, that's ADR line because he initially was just nodding because I wanted the effect of it being not his turn, so he's not reacting, he's not speaking because it's not his turn to do so. And I know that speaking is a free action that a lot of DMs rule that you can do it out of turn, but I wanted that to sort of stay a little bit consistent. Which is why when Barbarian asks Cleric, "You waiting for me?" Cleric just responds with nods rather than saying anything. But it just didn't really sell in the edit, so we got him to, okay, I'll get up in a moment. And it makes him sound like he's in bed, and he's like a little child that mum's like, "Come on, get up, I need you to do some chores for me."
Taugurum, and join the fight.
Okay, I'll get up in a moment.
Get up in a moment. And yeah, Ben has the orc in the headlock because it's not the orc's turn yet. So after Cleric's turn, and then you can hear the bow go. The bow was the last person in the initiative order, which I tried to make work because I was like, well, people who are archers usually have a higher dex, so he should have gone early in the initiative. It's always possible that he could have just rolled low though. So that you can hear just after he cures him and he goes, "I'll get up in a moment," there's a sound of a bow. So there's still a bow happening. And then it's back to the top of the round. Rogue's taken her turn to take the ready action, or more likely, she's taken her action. She's taken her movement to run. She's taken her bonus to hide, which is why she's done so silently. She's rolled like a 27 or something on her stealth, and that's why she goes from this side of the camera to this side of the camera with nobody seeing it. So she's taken her bonus action to hide, and then a movement to move to the other tree, and then she's taken her action to ready, which is why she goes out of turn in a second to get sneak attack on this other dude. Orc uses his action to break free of the grapple.
Get up!
It's not his turn though, it's this guy's turn. I'm getting pissed off.
Now.
And I love the special effects doing a good job of hiding the miss there, because this is not the angle you want to be filming a stunt combat, stage combat, film combat like this, because obviously when you're doing stage combat, if you're dead on, it's hard for you guys watching to know exactly how far my hand is from my body right now. So there's not a lot of difference between my hand being here and my hand being here from your perspective. So if I'm swinging an axe at somebody, I want the axe to come by about here, which there's no chance of it actually hitting me. So we're keeping all our performers safe, but it still looks like you could have been hitting me. Whereas on this angle, you can see that he's not getting hit. It's not ideal angle to film at, but we couldn't bring the angle around to an ideal angle to film because we've kind of established that they're in these two lines of combat. And so that blood effect, you can kind of tell that the tip of the axe, the tip of the blade is like here at best, and they've put a whole bunch of blood between the two of them so that you can tell that it's harder to tell that he was never actually hit. It's a good little effect to Keep it.
Get up!
Good.
Okay, I'm getting pissed off now! Why can't we just kill them all at once?
I like that he's getting pissed off now after he's been in a rage. So he's been in a rage at the start of the fight. Don't let them live! And he's doing rage damage and stuff. And then because everything goes on, he's kind of like let that rage drop off. And only after his rage has dropped off, he's getting pissed off now.
That's what we're doing?
And then Rogue appears from completely different area of the battlefield, which it took a lot of comments to before somebody actually pulled up on the fact that Rogue is just teleporting around the battlefield because of her rolling so high on stealth.
No, we're not. This guy went after Damokos, then you went after him, and then targeted.
So he's realised the turn order now.
Well, what is it that you want? We can't do anything else. This is how a fight works.
But why can't we do anything else? Why can't we just kill them all at once?
Oh, you mean like with a fireball? Wait, you a wizard?
Because he's just paying so little attention. So now it's then it would have been Axe guy's turn. He doesn't go. So then it's the staff guy's turn. He gets struck, and now Barbarian goes out of order.
No.
Awesome flip. Let's see that again. Let's see it in reverse. Zip, 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 zip. So the only thing that can't happen, well, that I thought couldn't happen at the game table, so to speak. So look at that. Oops, I think I muted it. Bloody YouTube's taking too long to load up frame by frame for some reason, even though it can play the entire thing in order at 20 frames a second, 25 frames a second or whatever. If I just ask for one frame, it's like, give me a second. Yeah, so I wish I could take credit for this choreography of this final kill everybody fight, but that was pretty much on them. I just said, staff, you're gonna go forward to attack. Barbarian's going to interrupt you, and that's the start of them going, whoa, it's not your turn, how did you interrupt him? And then Barbarian goes, oh, sod it, let's kill them all. And then he just goes down the line towards us. And that's all I told him. He's going to come forward, you slaughter him, you slaughter him, you slaughter him. And it was up to the stuntmen to put their own little flares on it.
I mean like that.
Well, no, but that's not... You can't do it. No.
What a cool flip. I'm pretty sure, it's hard for me to tell who was which with all of the masks on, but I'm pretty sure that last guy who did the flip is Xavier, who is a flatmate of Wandering Death. So, all comes back around. What was I going to say about that before that? I can't remember. So yeah, this whole sequence here is, because it's the payoff at the end, it's him breaking world logic. In actuality, the Barbarian shouldn't be able to kill 4 people in once. So he's breaking the rules of the game in order to do this. Or so I thought. And I was doing that because I was fine with it paying off in that way, because I'd already tried to make the joke work in game in the other way. By which I mean, Barbarian is the stooge who realizes the world is not working in a sensible way. He's applying real world logic to the game physics. And then often the joke will pay off, that, especially in like the PUBG logic and stuff, the joke of that back and forth between him saying this is not how it's meant to work and then saying of course it is that they then find out that, yeah, that is how the game works. And it still makes no sense to the stooge or the straight man, but they've been proven wrong because the game actually works that way. So I tried to make it, I tried a few different ways to sort of have the punchline be that Barbarian was in the wrong. But it just none of the ways that I came across just really worked, as well as just having the Barbarian get a win in this particular skit.
Oh, a new adventurer joins the team.
Thank you for joining the team. I don't know what just...
Loopy, hoopy doopy lolly pally super looper hoop dee doody.
That's why. I was like, I don't know what's happened to my alerts there. Oh, it's because you put in a single word that's... Thank you, Anton. 13 months even, tier 3. You're a whole year of support now. So the barbarian doing this, the fact that he is actually getting a win and he's proving himself right, that there's no reason the game can't work like this, was the sudden twist at the end that, like, ha ha ha, imagine if D&D was able to do this. But then a few people in the comment have said, that's actually possible if he's level 5, if he's level 5 in either barbarian or fighter, and he has at least 2 levels in fighter, then he could do this. Because he could kill 2 of them with his action, and then he could kill another 2 with his action surge. So he's actually able to action surge and get another 2 attacks off. So the first one would have been him. The first one would have been a polearm master. If he has the polearm master, then as the staff guy enters his reach, he gets to react with an attack of opportunity first. Rules lawyers must be fun at parties. Yeah, I know. It's all about how you... I'm a rules lawyer, Vermouth, but it's all about how you put that information out there. If you come about it in like a, oh man, this is fantastic, I love it. The way I'm imagining it being is like, imagine if you had a barbarian who was like a 5th level fighter as well, and he also had the polearm master feat, then you could actually make that work. And you're coming at it collaboratively, you're coming at it from, like, they're going this way with it, and you're coming in from the side with them and taking them on that journey and being like, yeah, and also this could also work. But if you come about it head on instead, they're coming about it this way, and you come at it with a stop sign, and you go, actually, that can't work because he would have to be a level 5 barbarian with this and this and this. It's not okay. That's when you're going to butt heads and you're going to be like, go fuck off. Just get out of my face, you rules lawyer and twat. Not interested in you. It's all about how you come about it. Rules lawyers are not necessarily a bad thing. You just got to put your ideas out there in a constructive fashion. So anyway, yes, it is still possible. He would have to be a level 7. Level 7? No, he'd have to be a level 6, I suppose. 1 level in barbarian to be the barbarian class, and then 5 levels in fighter. So it would be possible, is my point. He could polearm master that first guy down, and then it's his turn. He could take the action to attack the next guy, and then action surge to attack the next 2. Use your good rules lawyering for good, not evil. Yeah, exactly right.
No.
Well, that's a genius idea. I think we should do that in the future. Yeah.
And then the final tiny little takeaway is that Phoenix is back over this side of the map. So after her previous turn, she somehow disengaged or hid or whatever, run around with her crazy speed. Maybe she's got the mobile feet or something, and she's ended up back on this side of the map. You'd have to use the brace maneuver, not polearm master. Actually, Lap Kiwi, you want to fucking go, mate? You want to go? Because polearm master specifically says when a person enters your range, you get to take an attack of opportunity, and that's what he could have done. So polearm master would have been enough. You don't want to go with me about rules in D&D, Lap Kiwi. I know the book back to front and upside down. It doesn't matter. You don't have to use a polearm. And axes can be polearms if the DM has allowed the axe to be a polearm. And look at his axe. It's a fucking long weapon. You are right that it does have to be a polearm to take the attack of opportunity. Get him, Rob!
Smells constantly.
Why don't you watch a D&D logic
So about that
video
skid idea
every
of
day?
DM
Oh, you
fighting
can just
rules.
watch them all right now. There. And don't forget, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Emmett's such a fucking good actor, man. He blows me away with his performance. So good.
It's an ambush! Disengage! Hide!
I'm only messing, by the way, Lap Kiwi. I think you know that.
Sacred flame!
The Muslim country movie Quran back to front
They're
with
wearing
no
the mark
rules
of
books, which is
Gredulon.
handy because that's how it's written.
Hold person!
Who are we fighting?
Don't let them live!
It's hard to tell in written text sometimes. I want to make sure that you were not actually taking my hostility as serious.
Guys, what are we doing?
Not you too. It's bad enough their conscience isn't listening. Yes! Got one!
No, I know we're fighting orcs. I mean, Why are we waiting?
What do you mean waiting? Oh, Christ, you're distracting me!
Also, he's Emmett doesn't sound anything like that in reality. He's another one like Byron who is very good at accents. And when he was talking to me about what accent I wanted for him, and I was like, whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with doing for an entire series or 7, you gotta maintain it. And so he toyed around with Russian and German and landed on Yorkshire. And he does a very good Yorkshire accent, so much so that when I linked this episode to my parents last night, my mum was like, "Who's that Yorkshire lad who was wearing a blue face?" Still haven't managed to see Phoenix hanging up on... I know, right? I so wanted it. Unfortunately, as you can see, the forest that we film in is all very long, thin, spindly trees with no low-hanging branches at all. And so we couldn't fit it in there at all. Obviously, we wouldn't have actually had her hanging upside down. We would have had the camera upside down, and she just like leans up into the shot and takes a shot and then leans back down again from the shot and then flip it. But even if we'd have done that, there's nowhere that we would have made sense for her to be hanging from, because there's no branches on any of these trees. Just make a branch. Yeah, that's what we had time for that on the day where we had to get 4 skits.
Where are we fighting again? And who's taking turns?
The isolated arrow kill is great timing. Yeah, I thought that worked really well.
We're all just taking turns fighting. Look.
Oh yeah, thank you, Spidey, for the reminder. I'll tell you about that.
Come on!
Ben Crunch makes me think of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. Yeah, he's got that long shaggy head.
Well, you gonna heal him?
Boom, boom, boom.
You're waiting for me, aren't you?
Boom. It's been talking nosy for the character. Yeah,
Cure wounds.
both.
Rise, Targarum, and join the fight.
Okay, I'll get up in a moment.
You like the fact that it's still Targrim at this point? Like he's still Targrim continuity-wise from the previous skit?
Get up!
Someone in the comments thinks Alan's the Goliath. Yeah. A couple of people in the comments were like, I can't make out which one's Alan. And I was like, he's the halfling rogue that shoots arrows from behind the tree.
Okay, I'm getting pissed off now! Why can't we just kill them all at once?
That's what we're doing?
No, we're not! This guy went after Damokos, then you went after him, and then Targrim.
Well, what is it that you want? We can't do
Anything else? This is how a fight works.
But why can't we do anything else? Why can't we just kill them all at once?
Oh, you mean like with a fireball? Wait, are you a wizard?
You're a wizard.
I mean like that.
I love that line.
Well, no, but
Wait,
that's
are you
not-
a wizard?
You can't do it.
It's so much. It works so much funnier for me because I know who Monk is, and I know some of the other skits that are going to come out that are really going to solidify the fact that he's just not listening. But it's so funny to me to think that he's been playing with this guy for a few weeks at this point. Little Z Gamers here. What up? Thank you for the raid. You're joining us for a live behind-the-scenes breakdown of the newest episode of D&D Logic, the short Logic comedy skit series that I wrote and directed. Episode 2 came out yesterday, and we're just watching it now. You've joined us at towards the end of it though, so you've missed you've missed the first hour and a half of me talking about it.
Constantly.
Fire up spells constantly.
Why don't you watch a D&D Logic video every day?
Oh, you could just watch them all right now. There. Don't forget, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. And that end annotations will really pay off when we've actually got all 10 episodes out. But when we've only got 2 episodes out, the annotations doesn't pay off that well. Alright, so final thing I'll talk about with it then, and then I'll have said my piece, and I'll be back at peace with myself about how it can actually work. Is a lot of the comments, and to be very clear, at least half the comments are just positive things saying, I love these guys, I love this, I love the videos you guys put out, this is hilarious, this is my new favourite show of the week, blah blah blah, just generally positive things. And then a third of them are, well, maybe like an eighth of the comments are just kind of dodgy or creepy shit about how they just really like Phoenix and she's super cute and stuff, and I'm like, alright, yeah, sure, but keep it in your pants. And then, like, the rest of them are rules lawyers. A great deal of the comments are like, this is why I hate RPGs. I'll never play D&D because of this. And I'm like, D&D's not actually like this. It's just a joke about D&D. Where I'm setting up an exaggerated form of something that's humorous in the game to think about, and then taking the piss out of that. It's fine. But then there's the comments of the rules lawyers going, actually, D&D combat takes place over 6 seconds simultaneously. So they're not waiting their turns, they're all going simultaneously. And to them I say, no. Because even though it says that in the rules, even though it says that all the combat happens simultaneously and everybody's taking their turns at once, that's not how it plays out. Because the person who goes first in the initiative order has their entire turn resolved before the second person in the initiative order goes. So the second person in the initiative order has to react to things that have happened because of the first person's turn. Let's say the assassin rogue goes first, which is likely because they've got a huge initiative modifier. Boom. They go first. They assassinate someone with sneak attack and crit. Somebody goes down and they're dead. The second person in the combat now casts a resurrection spell to raise the dead and turn them into a zombie. Alright, and then the paladin goes and casts smite on the zombie who's now just been resurrected. And then the fourth person heals the rogue or something. How is it that you're smiting a zombie that doesn't even exist at the start of the turn order? Because the zombie didn't exist until after the second person's turn, who resurrected him into a zombie. And how is you even resurrecting a dead person into a zombie if the person was alive at the start of the turn? Because the rogue hadn't killed him yet. So no, actually, you are actually waiting, no matter... And obviously, should be obvious anyway, apparently not to all of the rules lawyers who don't understand comedy, obviously, a good dungeon master will blur those lines as much as they possibly can with descriptions. If somebody takes a turn that doesn't directly relate to something that somebody else has done on that turn, then yes, as much as you can, have them going simultaneously. You say, while the rogue is over there assassinating somebody, the barbarian is over here cutting down this guy. And that's happening simultaneously because their turns aren't actually affecting each other. But anything that does affect each other, like the guy resurrecting the fallen dude into a zombie, then that you can even... A good dungeon master will blur those lines. So as soon as that necromancer is about to cast something else, he sees the rogue's arrow strike his friend through the eye, and before that guy's body hits the ground, the necromancer turns him back into a zombie. And so you're like trying to make things go simultaneously as much as you can. So of course, yes, a good dungeon master will do that, but you still have to be reactive in your turn. The second turn of combat has to happen after the first turn of combat has resolved. So yes, it is turn-based. It is happening one after another. You are waiting for each other. So shut the f*** up is the takeaway. Don't question me on D&D. And I'm done. That is my piece. I've said it. I'm done. Now I can rest easy. I did that was also a joke, by the way. You can question me on D&D. I'm not a be all end all god. I definitely get things wrong. Hope you enjoyed episode 2, everybody. That was fun.